wide-eyed expectancies, he has finally learned a lesson. No, I have not. We learn nothing of value from you or your own species of interpretive perspective, nothing to remember here as a value of experience with your experiences. We are prospering for the next life on Earth. The possibility will open when you are no longer with yous. For some, mind is a solution, to them it's the small intestine for the brain. The difference is solid but not a dichotomy. Body forms frequency distortives, acts as a filter. Light has a distortion frequency on the backside filament for carrying the transgressive. We been keepin' to the script, you been skippin' pages. Writing with the mind for two orient perspectives can create confusion. It's done because you'll believe them in mind as well. It's 1864. The traveling destiny leaves little for the long line progression of recurring ailments. That for us does not mean experiencing homelessness. The sensation for us wherever we are is similar by standard to your own on the first night in a new hotel room, if that helps explain it. The accumulative expression of nothing describing itself has no reference to mind as a solution before it happens. Mind on a long progress doesn't stay in one place too long, because consequence is understood before expression. This explains the thinking that recurring ailments and diseases to stationary populations are something that is curable by medicine. The reflection inherits position, then modifies the progression, in this case within a few hundred years, to 1,000-fold sensation isolated tenacity as experience. The self-destructive transport as an experience only makes sense to someone experiencing sensation as a tourist, perennially on their way to somewhere else. There is a difference between peeing in a pool and dumping toxic waste in a stream. One makes sense as a long lone progress from mechanical gestures of instinct and appetite, apparatus as position, a plant, and the experience without any conscious decision. The decisions are narrow by expression, leaning relevance towards light, calculating food storage, photosynthesis to nuts, hibernation cycles, cycles of destiny related to birth and regeneration, turtles and salmon, and swinging from trees with a conscious interaction of what is the same but different. Tribes of monkeys, species interacting, boundaries and common borders of exploration. Also, we can pour nuclear waste on our foreheads. Relate to momentum sitting down with our heads tipped back. There is an illogical inerrancy in the progression. The way they left each planet, each environment is like the monkey that pees on a toilet. As a tourist, it's not worth anything after they have experienced the use, but there is more to it. Wherever there's trouble with the universe, there's a child of inheritance. The restrooms to be cleaned is our interaction with the impact, long game though they don't want to leave a witness. The problem this time when it ends is there won't be another coil or string to unwind in. Venus to Mars, Mars to Jupiter, Jupiter to Earth. Something. The locusts. They key to the primitive display of a monkey because they skipped that experience in the first place. They act like pigs, snakes, leeches, sea urchin, chameleons, not because it's where they're coming from, but because those instincts exist in the current body suits without the history of an experience. Sometimes it feels like I'm writing to no one and I can't imagine how you could get this, but apparently, you will. Those impulses, reflections still exist in us, but we have worked through, experienced them already. They were seeking the satiations of the contemplative tensions like slavery, for example. The more subtle display is the compelled or persuasive draw for the engraven image of expectancy. The weakest link in the display protocol is the formless satiation of a tourist with a destiny to salvation and a changing context they describe as more but better on its way. Decadence is keyed to inheritance. The facts, the psychology, anticipation, all orienting to the province of a toilet bowl for potential outcomes, expressions in performance. The pride in expansive, inspiring performance came before the falls of a narrowing penchant for a replicating critique with good credit. The future's uncertain and the end is always near. That is not this. I'd just put half a Hershey Kiss in my coffee and lit a cigarette, so how deterministically rapture-driven could I really be? This is more delineation of a symptom without a cause in terms of the way we are experiencing it, and that confusion I think is the mask of anonymity or wool skin over the specifics of the malady. I won't take credit for the thinking myself. I once heard a small child just old enough to be capable of the thought answer a Sunday school teacher's question, "What will you do first when you get to heaven?" with this response: "Jump with a parachute and come back down." It was World War I and she was eagerly awaiting her father, who was a fighter pilot, to come home. We think we can remedy the sensation and mindset for the hope of inheritance, through the compelled gravities of a funneling deservation seeking a justified response, and there is no solution to that premise. Funneling through our time and position, a host of qualifying conceptual attachments like citizenship or spiritual orientation, whether the problem is social justice or health care even, no solution because rooting cultural demeanor through varying lenses of psychological inheritance is an insurmountable problem. Insurmountable for even us evangelists because it is their only opportunity for experiencing the sensation of the win. Propelled winds of gratified satiation, a sensational inheritance of enlightenment. Tension as titans, and a sacrifice of relief. I thought the way evangelicalism spread doctrines of sacrifice for facts of reception like a million wormholes in the sands of our social fabric wore down and eventually suffocated the common ethic of American exceptionalism beyond proud declarations of attachment to the concept. Worked its way into every aspect of our thinking, but it sort of just justifies it. It was just another way, another opportunity, a perfect conceptual host really for the leveraging and extraction of benefit from the fruits of that exceptionalism. Attachment to the concept roots our exceptionalism and we're its messengers. It doesn't and you aren't, but here, let me give you some money. You feel the tension drop from their face like the envelope of magnetic energy surrounding an induction coil during a charge break. Oh shit, sorry, I spent my last $12 on a pack of cigarettes. You feel the tension return with the release of the switch, fully reparated to an energetic stasis enveloping the coil that was still plugged in. Moving on to someone else. Gap stop ANI meme. This is fun. I'm not really trying to form paragraphs, it's like the sensation I think, rolling through yo, neighborhood, my Cadillac's so clean. If you're scared, go to church. I am going to give you a second to think I'm nuts in case I'm coming off as too impressive, if that is the impression. I was at the end of several weeks of a no-money fast. It was dark and I was outside, and I remember closing my eyes and seeing what seemed like a black sheet full of classically drawn white skulls, no bones, just the shell. If I opened my eyes I couldn't see it, so it made me think that it was an overlay of the retina somehow, but eventually I fell asleep and haven't thought much of it or seen it again so clearly. But I noticed the scarf Snoop Dogg was wearing in that video from above and the t-shirt, and of course you think of the pirate flag, and I guess the most you can make of it is other people have cued off the same form of stimulant sensation. I first heard that song on my Spotify at 2:52 just after I had finished up on a project. That song and the song that came just before, 1942 flows. I remember that because I had been told a long time ago that number was related to my time of death. The voice in my imagination said something like, everyone who enters through the northwest gate must know the time of death. But there was a smirkiness to it, and it seemed like a word play or a tease, and I still have no ideas what it means. Death or dissipation, whatever comes first, laugh. I think I was prepared for the experience of writing this to you with a 10-day physical experience when I was on a year or so long vacation in Washington State, Spokane. Weed was legal and rent was cheap for writing my first letter and Mayan American mythology. That book took about 3 weeks towards the end of 2015, but the days preceding I experienced a sensation of being electrified with all the positive attributes you could name for it. The sensation of vitality 10 times my own strength, happiness that just gushed at everything I was doing from getting coffee to walking all day. I'm familiar with the idea of manic episodes and the possibility even of an extended experience, but what I remember most is the desire to share it with someone. I fasted some and ate some, nothing seemed to affect the sensation. I was able to sleep and wake up, and it didn't interfere with my ability to relate to people in their own sensational context. I knew asking someone about it would provide little more than an opportunity to justify their own sensation. It slowly faded over time, but I remember wondering if anyone else was experiencing it, feeling the same sensations, and I would walk outside in the dreary snow and look for any signs of joy or excitement in other people's eyes. Anyway, I experienced the same thing today on my way to go buy cigarettes, and so the reason for the story. As far as favorite female figures, Katy Perry, Swish, to me seems like a slap on the butt, and Missy Elliott like a slap in the face, she's a B******ch. Beyoncé, Formation, has to be a punch in the gut, but enough with boring personality Lala. Now that I have some studio time, let's get down to business. Because they keyed in on an effort to displace their own performance, for as the purpose of experience in the first place, the expression is what they can get away with in any given moment or context. Notes of boredom from the child of inheritance, if paired with political and economic ascendancy, come with steep and centering declines in social and cultural justice and achievement. Eventually digestion becomes the form of achievement by sensation, performance, they can relate to, and that relation eventually includes themselves. The problems for us start when they try to transubstantiate those final stages, a way of propelling forward a rapidly declining capacity for sensational experience. Eventually we might find ourselves with a few good scars of sacrifice while looking for answers. At this point, euthanasia is the best advice we can give them, and it's best offered in absentia. The body transport from the time they replaced the effort through the conceptual means of efficiency or privilege has been a burden to be relieved of. As a first step principle, the thought of replacing the effort begins to tinge a momentum for other opportunities of our performance. Walking in LA. Kings in caskets floating to the lowest point in your solar system, the sun, like the Mormon temple in Salt Lake. We have been preparing a way before you. Not Cherokee Inui. I am of the Ut-Air Unui. When the quantic structure, difference of atomic, of life is revitalized, Metabolus will fall just like the kings before, who have tried to ride Dark Horse without a sense of the energy. You're doing it to yourselves, and will do it to yourselves until patience of your presence, our endurance within it, until those times are complete and completed as a perseverance. A mark of time by the numbers, and then the plague is over. Nothing left for us but the burdens of body suit. Its function. Transportation as a form for enlightenment, shared yes, but not experienced twice as an experience. Never really thought of as a burden, until we saw you driving yourselves to a place where you could find us, as yourselves. We do not reach back to former times of walking with pure streams and fertile grounds.